Hello everybody and welcome back to Red Eagle Politics. Make sure you guys like this video down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. So Donald Trump has asked Representative Elise Stefanik from New York to withdraw her bid for UN ambassador. Donald Trump made the decision during the transition to appoint her as the UN ambassador. However, now he is kind of backtracking that and saying that we would rather be better off keeping our House majority because it's so slim. And here's my takeaway on this. I think it's a good thing that Donald Trump is doing this because it is true that if you open this seat, you don't know what can happen. We know the seat is like R plus 15, R plus 20. But this is not like the first possible instance of an R plus 15 to 20 seat flipping in a special election from Republican to Democrat. And you had 220 Republican congressmen as the result of this previous election, and you have two special elections already going on in Florida, and Republicans will likely win them, but it's possible they don't win them by as much. But you see this 218 because two seats are vacant. If you opened up another seat, you wouldn't even technically have a majority, and if it wasn't for some Democrats either retiring, resigning, or passing away, then Republicans would not even have the majority at that point. It would be close to deadlocked as we see it, and it's possible you could see a flip based on how these special elections have been going, and I'm not happy about that, but that's the way it is. And if you look at what happened on Tuesday night in Pennsylvania, Republicans dropped the ball. This is an election where you didn't have the highest turnout, of course. People that are going to use this to extrapolate for 2026 even, let alone 2028, or try to say that it's an indictment of Donald Trump's popularity, they're lying to you. We saw this in 2022. 2023 and 2024 before Donald Trump's election, where you had a lot of special elections, not all of them, but a lot of them, where the Democrats did overperform. And we talk a lot about the Democrats dying as a party, and in many cases, that is true. However, when you see things like this happen, where Republicans just don't show up because they've become the low propensity party, this is more of a common theme, and it's more true in places like the Rust Belt or the Upper Midwest than certain places like the Deep South, for example, or even places like California, where the more educated electorate's a little bit more Republican in some of these areas, and Republicans end up doing better, like we saw last month in Connecticut and California. But you also have the flip side where a lot of these districts, the more working class Republican districts, those are more vulnerable because a lot of people don't show up. A lot of people don't know the election's going on, and it's partially a state party competency thing, but you can't allow this to keep happening because just like in Pennsylvania, the state Senate, it's razor thin. This technically was not the election that would have determined it, but the majority went down from 3 to 2 seats. And it's like, yeah, this probably does end up flipping back in the next election, but you can't have this phenomenon keep happening. And it is true. It's a cycle, especially now that Trump is in the White House. A lot of people, they don't exactly feel like they can get out and vote because it's like, oh, Trump's there. Well, every election matters. And in terms of 2026, if you want Donald Trump to have a strong House majority, you're going to need people turning out in Wisconsin, for example, for the Supreme Court race, which will be taking place April 1st, because the Democrats, if they win, the liberal judge wins, they're going to try to draw out 2 House seats and flip them from red to blue. And we can't allow that to happen because that could determine Trump's agenda being able to be passed. And, we can't take our eye off the ball. It's always election season. This graphic says it well. Hard times create strong men. We saw this in 2021 when Republicans were supercharged in terms of their energy and showing up to vote. Strong men create good times. It's true. I mean, if you have people voting, They show up, we get these election victories, you can get legislative victories off of that as well. But those good times, when you have a trifecta, it's creating weak men, people that just don't care about the electoral process. They're not showing up to vote, and it's a major, major problem because those weak men not showing up to vote will inevitably create hard times. And it's an old saying, this is a chart that a lot of people have seen. Some people may have not seen it, but it's 100% true. It is a cycle, but you have to break the cycle by making sure that we're always in a position where we can maintain strength and have people showing up to vote, because that's all that matters. The Democrat Party, they're unpopular. They're dying. They're on their way out potentially in a lot of places, but they're kept alive by voters not showing up to the polls who should be showing up. This was the problem for Republicans in 2022. And you did have the flip side. I mean, the Democrats in the early 2010s and the Obama years, they didn't show up much in 2010 and 2014. That's why you had these massive red waves. Despite Obama, he wasn't popular, but he wasn't like the most unpopular president compared to like how Biden was before he left office, or Bush in his second term, or 2009, where he was in the 20s in terms of approval. But still, it's like we got to do a better job of getting voters out to vote. So Donald Trump arguably is saving the Republicans' House majority by doing this, because you never know what's going to happen. If somebody decides to retire or they pass away and they're in a competitive district, we understand how these things go. These special elections, they're a lot harder for Republicans to win. Now, if it's a midterm year, it's highly advertised. The state party gets their act together in some places, like what we see usually in like Florida or Texas. Republicans probably are going to do just fine. That part is true, but these special elections, we don't show up for them. And it's not an indictment of Trump or his popularity at all. I mean, this is just a lot of people are not showing up, but the people that always vote in every election, especially now more so than back then, they tend to lean more Democrat. They tend to be like that resist lib, stereotypical 50-year-old Karen that's just going to be voting in every possible election, where a lot of Republicans are not, especially when it's not even on an election day. I mean, you're talking about in Pennsylvania, this is just some random Tuesday in March. I didn't even know this election was going on until after it happened. We don't exactly see a lot of talk about a lot of these races, and sometimes we do have a moment where we overperform in one. I mean, we did in Connecticut that one time, in California that one time about a month ago, but it's like 10 out of the 13 special elections since the election, we've underperformed Donald Trump's margin. That's a major, major problem. I know Josh Parsons was not the strongest candidate, and that matters, especially in these special elections or off years. But still, this is not excusable. Even being a weaker candidate in a R+15 district, you cannot take it for granted. And Donald Trump is not taking it for granted in regards to the New York seat, but we can't be falling asleep at the wheel during these special elections. We're even seeing it in Florida. In one of the congressional districts, because both of these are like R+20, R+30 districts. You have Matt Gaetz's seat. Already the early vote is R+17, just about, and it's growing every single day. I mean, at the end of the day, his margin's going to be in line. The Republican candidate, Jimmy Petronis, he'll be in line with Trump's. But Randy Fine, who's kind of a blowhard, he's a weaker candidate. A lot of people see him as like a rhino type of guy, because when it comes to like immigration, he kind of is. His district, it's more Republican. He's probably going to win by double digits at the end of the day, but it's like R+5.45. It's like, guys, we need people voting. We need people voting early. You don't have to vote by mail, but a lot of these states do have in-person early voting, and Republicans, I mean, they're taking more advantage of it. We see it in Wisconsin, but we need more people voting early when possible. These people already know how they're going to vote, especially now, because you don't know what it's like in Wisconsin. You might have like a snowstorm on April 1st. I'm from the Midwest. I know how the weather goes in the early spring. You have some weird weather at times, but that's the way it is, and we need people out and voting to make sure that that doesn't really stop them, because you don't know. You'd rather bank your vote early if you know how you're going to vote. I know some people always show up on election day, and that's true. And they're going to continue that tradition, but you better make sure that you get to the polls if that's the case. But regardless, make sure you find people who don't vote. Get those people voting early. So those lower propensity voters, their votes are banked. And Democrats, ever since 2020, they've had an even bigger advantage in special elections because of the fact that they use the election system to their benefit. And it's true that we did that more so in 2024, and it's partially why Donald Trump won and won by the margin that he was able to win by. But that doesn't mean that we can't do better, because we need to absolutely do better and get people voting as soon as they possibly can. Make sure that we're the ones building a firewall, and we're still able to find a way to swamp them on election day, because we are the majority. We are. I mean, we proved that in this past election cycle. But when people don't show up to vote, you're allowing a party that is extremely incompetent to win just because of the fact that, oh, they have like the higher propensity voters. We have more in the tank, but we're not using that, and that's a major problem in these special elections. Because I know a lot of people that watched my last video probably were like, well, why aren't you talking about this election? Well, we talked about it on the last stream, for one, the night it happened, and we're talking about it in this video because it is important. And I think we can win in Wisconsin. But it's true that we're kind of playing from behind because, A, we're not voting early as frequently, and B, we're just the lower propensity party. And we need to make sure that we can get people out and voting. If every subscriber of this YouTube channel contacted 4 or 5 Trump voters in the state of Wisconsin and made sure they voted for Brad Schimel, guess what would happen? We would win almost certainly, because the first one to 1 million probably is going to end up winning that race. Maybe a little bit more than that, maybe like 1.1 million. Regardless, you do the math either way. You have friends in Wisconsin that support Trump, get them voting. And the same thing goes for every special election. So I'll do my best to update you guys about elections like this, just to make sure that we can have people doing what they need to do, because we can't be falling asleep at the wheel. So that's kind of what Donald Trump is doing when he is saying that Elise Stefanik should remain in the House. And honestly, I don't hate Elise Stefanik. She's gotten a lot better over the years. But I will say that maybe he could get an even better UN ambassador. So it's like a win-win. Maybe Stefanik will join his administration after the midterms in some role, some position. I don't know what that would be. I know Trump likes her. He probably wants her in some role at some point. But regardless, you're seeing what's going on here. Donald Trump going out there and just making sure that we can maintain our House majority, because that is absolutely crucial. And also, we need people out and voting in Florida on April 1st or before April 1st, ideally. Same thing with Wisconsin, so we can win those elections, because they are important and they have a lot of sway. The elections we need to win don't start and stop with presidential elections. And, you know, it's true that I would rather be the lower propensity party that wins the White House and has trifectas in presidential years, but there's so much more that we can do to kind of make sure that we can win these other elections. And once we do, we're going to be unstoppable as a movement. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching this video. Make sure you guys like this video down below, comment down below, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications so you never miss another video. Follow me on social media. The links are all in the description down below, and I will see you guys in the next one. Red Eagle, out.